Not because it's hidden. Not because it's complicated. But because they stopped looking for it. Do you remember when you were a kid? When everything felt big? When every street, every store, every moment felt like an adventure? You'd stare out the car window, watching the world rush past, eyes wide, taking it all in. You asked a million questions. Why is the sky blue? Where does the sun go at night? How do birds know where to fly? You saw the world without filters, without assumptions, without limits. And somewhere along the way, that feeling disappeared. Why? Because you stopped noticing. Because your mind started filtering the world down to what it expected to see. The hidden truth is your brain isn't designed to show you the truth. It's designed to show you what you believe is important. That's why, when you start wanting a certain car, you suddenly see it everywhere. It was always there. You just weren't looking for it. And if that's true for cars, for objects, for small details in life, then what else have you been missing? What else has been right in front of you this whole time? The trap most people fall into is this. They assume what they see is all there is. They assume the routine they've built, the habits they follow, the thoughts they repeat, are reality. But reality is so much bigger than that. Think about it. When was the last time you truly looked around? Not just went through your day. Not just repeated the same patterns. But really stopped and saw the world the way you did when you were a kid. Most people never do. And that's why their life stays the same. They live in a world they've stopped paying attention to. And when you stop paying attention, you stop seeing the doors that were open the whole time. Imagine your life is a maze. Most people wake up and follow the same path every day, walking the same familiar turns, facing the same walls, never realizing a door has been open this whole time. They just never turned their head to see it, because they assumed they already knew what was there. What if I told you that door is still there, right now, waiting? The problem isn't that you're trapped. It's that you've convinced yourself there's nowhere else to go. You've convinced yourself that what you see is all there is. And that's the greatest lie you've ever believed. You are not stuck. Your reality is only limited by the parts of it you've chosen to pay attention to. How many times have you looked back on a moment in your life and thought, if I had just done this one thing differently, everything would have changed? That's proof. Proof that the opportunity was always there. That another path existed. That an open door was waiting. You just didn't see it yet. And that's what most people never realize, until it's too late. So what do you do about it? Tomorrow, change one thing. One assumption. One routine. One small piece of the maze you've been walking through. Sit somewhere new. Take a different route. Stop and really look at something you've passed 100 times. Because the moment you do, the walls start shifting. The second you open yourself up to the idea that there's more than what you've been seeing, you start seeing it. And suddenly, opportunities appear. Ideas spark. Paths that felt blocked start to open. Not because they weren't there before, but because now, you're finally looking for them. Most people think that in order to change their life, they have to do something huge. But real change starts with something so small, so simple, that most people ignore it. It starts with the ability to see what they were blind to before. The world around you isn't fixed. It isn't set in stone. It is fluid, shifting, molding itself around the way you think, the way you believe, the way you move. And the second you start paying attention, you realize you were never trapped. You were never out of options. You just weren't looking in the right place. Think about how many people live the same year over and over again. They work the same job, have the same conversations, follow the same patterns, never questioning why. Never realizing that if they just made one new decision, their entire reality could shift. But they don't. Because their mind tells them nothing has changed. So they stay. Even when they're unhappy. Even when they know deep down that there's more. They wait for something outside of them to prove that change is possible. But what if change is waiting for you to notice it first? What if the doors you thought were closed were never locked? What if the opportunities you thought were out of reach were always within arm's length? The difference between people who break free and people who stay stuck is simple. It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's not resources. It's awareness. The ability to see what others don't. The ability to recognize an open door when everyone else assumes it's a wall. Have you ever seen an old childhood home and thought, this place feels so much smaller than I remember? Nothing changed. The house didn't shrink. You just grew. And now you can see it for what it really is. That's how life works, too. As you grow, you start seeing the limits you used to accept. You start seeing how much more is possible than what you once believed. But only if you pay attention. Most people don't. They live in the same mental space they did 10 years ago. Thinking the same thoughts. Running the same patterns. Never realizing that they've already outgrown their tank. And the only thing keeping them small is the fact that they refuse to see it. Because seeing it would mean taking responsibility for it. It would mean no longer blaming life for their circumstances. No longer waiting for someone else to change things. No longer believing that where they are is where they have to stay. And that's the scariest part. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know the door is there, you can't pretend it's not. Most people will never see this. Not because they can't, but because they won't. Because it's easier to believe life is small. That nothing changes. That what you see is all there is. But now you know better. Now you see the door. The only question is, are you going to walk